Charlie Kirk is dead, and while America reels, guess who the conspiracy vultures blame? Figures like Candace Owens are peddling wild claims implying involvement of the Mossad and Jewish donors. Some are even celebrating. What does this assassination and the reaction to it reveal about the dangerous state of our political discourse? Why are pro-Palestinian voices so often the ones calling for violence, and have the British in a massive rally began to fight back and take back the culture and their country? We're discussing it all on today's Quad. And welcome back, everybody, to the Quad in our Jerusalem studios with some very, very special co-hosts. But firstly, my sister, Shoshana Keats-Jaskel. She is the founder of Chochmat Nashim, fighting to elevate Orthodox women's voices. And repeat co-host, except the first time we were on location at the CUFI conference in DC, Sandra Hagee Parker, who is the head of the CUFI Action Center. Thank you for being in Israel, and thank you for being with us. And, oh my God, the glamour is just too much. Iranian dissident human rights activists all the way from a undisclosed location. Lily Moo here in the studio. You've also been in our show before, in the middle of the Iran war, and obviously it's such a pleasure to have you here with us live in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
And it's so good that we have our specialist co-host here, because there's so much to unpack from this horrible week, which may be or may not, ironically, be a turning point in the way the world is going, perhaps. But let's first talk about the really tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, which has caused ripple effects across the world. And of course, who do we have reacting to this, apart from the people who are devastated, like us here, like normal people, like people who have a heart? But we also have, of course, the conspiracy theorists who are blaming the Jews. And who's our favorite conspiracy theorist / anti-Semite? Candace Owens. Look at her take.
I think in the end, Charlie was going through a spiritual transformation. I don't think it, I know it. He was going through a lot, and there was a lot of pressure. And it's hard for me to watch the people who were pressuring him, I don't know, just say the things that they're saying. You know, there's something about it that just feels really fake to me. And they would have allowed him to lose and wanted him to lose everything for changing or even slightly modifying an opinion. And then to see them doing what they're doing today, it's hurtful to me. It's very hurtful to me.
Yes, we have Candace Owens with her take that it's Jewish billionaires that killed Charlie, even though Charlie was very pro-Israel, defended Israel every single day in every single platform. It doesn't mean he had to agree with us on everything, but he did defend Israel in every single way. But look who's celebrating.
I want to dedicate this next one to an absolute piece of shit of a human being. The pronouns was, were. Because if you touch shit, you will get banned. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk, you piece of shit. Oh.
Ding dong, the witch is dead.
We think that Charlie Kirk just got shot in the neck. Hey, ooh, ah, ooh.
I would say pour one out for Kirky boy, but I don't waste good beer on little
Charlie Kirk just got put down like a dog in Utah, and I could not be happier.
I will not ever feel bad when bad people get what they deserve.
Stoked right now? You wanna know why I'm so stoked?
Yeah! CK got AK'd, and he's gone.
He did say that gun deaths were an acceptable side effect of gun rights.
We got Charlie in the neck. Is it a coincidence that the people celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder are also the pro-Hamas brigade? Let's unpack this, because honestly, it's like a roller coaster of emotion going on. Sandra, you are on the front lines of the Christian leadership, of the pro-Israel Christian leadership. Charlie Kirk was a very proud Christian. How has this affected you, your people, your flock, pastor, and everything else, all the incredible work that you're doing in the Action Center?
Well, the first sentence that you said, Charlie Kirk was a proud Christian, comma, so Charlie Kirk was a defender of Israel. Those two statements go together. So trying to create this fallacy that he was somehow not pro-Israel or turning against Israel is fundamentally untrue. He was a Christian. You have heard time and time again from his own mouth the importance of the nation of Israel, geopolitically, spiritually, and otherwise. So as Christians, you said it right, we're devastated. Nobody has to be a Christian to understand that what happened to Charlie Kirk was an assassination.
Yeah.
What happened to Charlie Kirk was an effort to silence opposition holistically, that if you have ideals that are different from somebody else's, then you can have a target on your back, and you had it coming. What it's going to do to the Christian movement in the United States of America is galvanize us. You heard Erica Kirk say so bravely, hours after he was killed, that if you thought that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point and the Christian youth of America were powerful before, just wait. And that's not an act of defiance. That's not a call to arms. That is motivation.
Yeah.
Because whenever the Bible is replete from Genesis to Revelation, out of tragedy will come triumph. And we know that when you are defending the Judeo-Christian values that our country was founded on, you cannot fail. So while we mourn, and we will forever be devastated as to what happened to Charlie and his family and the Turning Point family, we know that Turning Point and the Christians of America and the Christian Zionists of America will come out encouraged and stronger than ever.
It's so scary, though. It's so scary. And how disgusting do you have to be? Like that guy, what's his name? Bobby Villain. He really looks like he needs a shower. That guy. How is anybody celebrating, Shoshana, how is anybody celebrating the tragic death of a young guy?
It's so simple. They've spent decades othering someone who doesn't believe as they believe. They spent decades othering people who have values that are opposite their values. And when you dehumanize someone, when you other someone, when you say that words are violence, then you are creating a platform, a justification for assassination. It's very simple. I mean, I don't know what his motivations were. Some people say he was very left. Some people say he was even more far right and he was trying to bring the right. I don't know. The guy who killed him, Travis, I think.
Yes. He's a 23-year-old radicalized.
So that's what I want to say. Whoever radicalized him, and I speak as a parent, have no idea what is going on the forums, on the games, if your kids are spending hours on a computer, you need to know where they are and what they're doing. Yeah. Who's talking to them? Yeah. Who's feeding them things? Yeah. Whatever left, right, center, if you don't know what your children are doing during the day, it's your job as a parent to find out. Because I'm quite certain those parents are devastated and wondering, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? For a 22-year-old, his life is over. His life is over.
And his whole family's. I mean, how horrible.
I mean, I'm not justifying, he's wrong and he should go away forever. But as someone who's a parent who knows that my children are being influenced by people that are not me, okay? We have to make sure that the next generation, that these people who are growing up, we got to get them back.
Yeah.
We've got to get them back because there are too many voices that are speaking to them, whispering in their ear, othering other people, and justifying the murder of someone who doesn't agree with them.
Well, let's not talk about the fact that who's in their ear? Qatar, Iran. Lily, you are a human rights activist. You are fighting against people who think that somehow the regime you had to run away from are the good guys here. How do you're living in London. You saw what happened on Saturday. How do you interpret what's going on in the reference of your life and your struggle?
So as a British Iranian human rights activist, having to live on the run for the past 2 years, I can be of testament of this. Every time you speak of free speech in the UK, unless your free speech is appeasing of the ideas of the Islamist far left, you are labeled fascist far right activist. And I am done with their labels because my friend and I, we were attacked in Whitehall time and time again.
Who attacked you, Lily?
Fascists.
The mobs, the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas mobs?
They're the people who infiltrate any the thing is, the pro-Palestinian mob use the same formula of fascism, is to dismantle, distort reality, and brainwash, radicalize, and make the others the enemy, and be self-righteous and entitled. All, I don't know, I mean, just feeding the ego and having your ego carry a bullet. A man's life was taken. He only spoke of equal intellect. Like, he humanized his opponents.
He really did.
And truly had a conversation with them. He wanted to know what it is that they truly believe, question them so that they can express it, they hear it themselves, the world will understand. And that's truth. The idea of understanding truth is so frightening to people who don't know their own truth. And they look for every lie, every elaborate lie, just to silence people like Charlie, people like myself, people like Nihat Qurbani, and Eli Kalaban, and so many others. Why should we have to live in hiding here in the West? Because people who wanted to see the dismantling of the West have to carry on just suffocating free speech. I mean, women are at the forefront of the attacks on this line, because a lot of the fascist misogyny that's in play here is constantly attacking our position, whether it's our sports spaces and our sports arenas, or our bathrooms, or our fashion. Our identity is now just reduced to just long hair and fashion. So if a man does this, we have to accept him to be a woman who gives birth, and like our entire title is birthing people, and like, it's ridiculous. What about being a person, a woman, and wanting to exist? Why should we have to constantly hide the fact that we understand that there are certain facts in life and boundaries do exist? It's not a gray zone, and rainbows actually have boundaries. All of those colors in the rainbow are their own colors. Please stop this like purple mishmash and gray of everything I say is so correct and I'm so offended I'm gonna shoot you to death. Stop it.
But the most ridiculous thing is that those people are aligned with the Islamic Republic, who hate people from rooftops.
Because that's fascism. That's fascism. It's distorted reality to the core. Yes. It's self-hating to the core. Iranian people were living in an era of modernization and change and growth. Yes, there was a mismatch in the society of Iran during the Pahlavi time as progress was happening. But that does not mean Iranian people should have been punished into the regime of the Ayatollah, a terrorist regime that dismantled the entire Middle East, made only enemies for Israel, while Iran was the #1 Islamic country in the Middle East who supported Israel. We've been brothers and sisters for centuries. It's in the Bible, it's in the history of Persia, it's in the Torah, the Queen Esther. I mean, we have been one in
it's the colonization, it's the Islamist colonization of the world. And the question is, does this murder, this brutal assassination, ironically, I want to say turning point, because it's almost prophetic that that was the name of his organization, that is it now, does this murder now create or accelerate that turning point? Sandra, you were in London yesterday, a few days ago, on Saturday, when there was a march of people, say, up to 3 million people.
Yeah.
The BBC, of course, say it was 150,000 people. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not good with numbers, but when you see those streets, that's not 150,000 people. That's not 150,000 people.
But the glory.
Of course. You were right in the middle of it. What did you feel?
So we were there. Christians United for Israel also has Christians United for Israel UK. This has existed for 10 years. And that's because Christians, evangelicals all over the world recognize the importance of standing with Israel. Doesn't mean you have to agree on everything.
Exactly.
It means you have to stand with Israel. So the irony that we're there, we're having an event on Saturday. It is absolutely, as you say, streets are closed down because there are millions marching. I will tell you, nobody can queue like the Brits. They just stood there and clogged the streets.
They love nothing more than a lie.
Impressive. And we had windows at our event, and we're, you know, kind of looking outside ominously because there's no traffic because everything's closed because just a few blocks over, millions of Brits. And here comes the Banana Brigade, you know, the opposition with their, you know, anti-Israel, pro-Pal, alphabet soup of causes, you know, to go confront the free speech. Yeah. First of all, comparatively, it was a pinprick. It was, you know, it was just a few hundred people, you know, with their banners for, you know, recognition and whatever. Recognize unicorns. It doesn't mean they exist. You know what I'm saying? But you said it best, the distorted reality. And within the face of truth, you have millions of Britons lining the street. You have Christians United for Israel UK having meetings with the Jewish community in the United Kingdom and Christian evangelicals in the United Kingdom saying that we're going to get together and continue to do our Night to Honor Israel events. You have a very loud majority over here going to intersect the giant that is the people of Britain. They were waving British flags. They were waving Israeli flags.
Amazing.
Because they know that they are united in their freedom. They are tired of being lied to. And it is going to be a turning point because we haven't lost the next generation. Since Charlie Kirk's death, they've said 32,000 inquiries have come across their board looking to start Turning Point chapters. We have hundreds of Christians United for Israel on campus chapters in America. Christians United for Israel has been going to Turning Point's events for years because it's hand in glove. If you're a Christian, you support Israel. We're a way for people to get active on that point specifically. So I think that it is going to make everybody recognize the reality that it can no longer be distorted because of millions of people in the streets. It can no longer be distorted because of thousands of activists on campus that are saying, we are tired of being ignored. We are here. We have had this message. We have been beating this drum. And it doesn't matter what you do to try to silence it. It's only going to grow.
I hope you're right, because what concerns me, and we've spoken about it also when we were at CUFI in DC, of this kind of the Tucker Carlson, stream of the Republican Party, the more isolationist wing, who don't seem to understand that when you support Israel, you're actually supporting America, because we're the outpost of the same values that we share. We're all against Iran, that actually Islamic Republic of Iran, that says very clearly, debt to America, debt to Israel. They say it. They don't hide it. Aren't you worried about the next generation, Sandra?
I'm not worried about the next generation. I am the generation they once talked about as not being pro-Israel.
Right.
And now they're talking about my children who are 10, 8. My daughter put on a Mogan David. Totally on her own. I said, what are you doing? She was like, I'm showing my support. I am not worried because I am in it and I see the thousands of Christian young people. We bring them to Israel. They are influencers, they are students, they are pastors, they are leaders. We brought people from NFL, MLB. You know, everybody in this room, everybody watching knows the majority is the loudest. And all you have to do is ignore the truth to believe a lie. I have no worries about the next generation. What I am worried about is people worrying that there's nothing we can do about it, that it's intransigent, there's an intractable problem, that there is no solution, so I'm going to wring my hands and I'm going to be silent and be quiet. That's the worst thing that could happen.
I agree. And Shoshana, you know, we spend so much time on this show talking about this very pessimistic prognosis. Sandra's giving us hope. Lily is basically saying we're fighting the good fight and maybe things are turning around in Europe. Maybe people are waking up.
Turning around, absolutely. I mean, look at the people of Iran. In spite of the 20,000 Iranians getting arrested after the 12-day war, 20,000 Iranians got arrested simply for having their phones checked. Every car was at a checkpoint.
Oh, God.
With IRGC and their henchmen. And Iranians are still fighting. They're fighting and openly showing their support for Israel in spite of the executions. Mass executions are happening in Iran right now. And not much of it is being even talked about. It's like there is this notion and idea that while people are in trauma and running to keep their safety in life, they should instantly get up and rise into a revolution. But Iranian people have been fighting for their free speech ever since the Ayatollah stepped foot in the country. We had Iranian women in their thousands coming out and demonstrating against the forced hijab. As soon as any sort of uprising against this regime happened, mass executions followed up. And Israel has helped Iranian people by thousands of folds of what Iranians could never have achieved on their own. Israel did in 12 days, but it's not enough. It's not enough, and Iranian people do need help and support in bringing this regime down. But that is only one step of this long journey. The West has already been infected.
Yeah.
The plague is already out here, and people's minds, people's children. I mean, in kindergartens in England, there is stickers of Free Palestine and hate towards Israel. That's terribly dangerous. That is exactly what I grew up with. And Iranian children are against that. Iranian people are against that. Iranian children actively renounce and denounce and revert the chants that they make them chant in school. But to see European children and European kids and Western children and Western adolescents be indoctrinated against their own homeland, against their own country, against their own national security, just to appease an ideology of communism merged with Islam in the most dangerous way. Well, guess what? 30,000 communists got executed in Iran at the hands of Islamists the second they came into power.
It's not about facts. Don't confuse any of this with real facts. You can educate people.
Yes, but Iranian people are living the consequence of this unholy alliance. Iranian people are every day giving their lives, and they're reaching out to the international community to say, listen, do not do this to your country. Do not do this to your country. Why should there be an indoctrination camp in the UK paid by Islamic Republic by an Iranian Shia mullah who goes and visits the king of our country in the United Kingdom and then takes UK 16-year-olds to Najaf and then to Iran, and all of this has been exposed, and the anti-terror knows about it, counter-terrorism knows about it, MI6 knows about it, the media knows about it, and here we are sitting appeasing the commissioner and all of the free liberty he has given to the Islamists in the country. And when I say the commissioner, I mean Sadiq Khan being the commissioner of the top commissioner of Met Police in London.
It's disturbing, but do you think it's because they don't know what they're defending? Because when a vacuum, the bad comes in. So you know what you're defending. I know what I'm defending. What do you think?
I think that in any Western country, and I grew up in America, and the UK is a Western country, and Western Europe, they take for granted freedom. They take for granted that they can say what they want, do what they want, act as they want, pray as they want, or not pray. And they don't understand that that is a value that has been fought for generations, and it's not something that is free. I know they say freedom isn't free. It's true. And as an American, when I saw that I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was. Full disclosure, I didn't know who he was. I didn't follow him. I didn't know who he was. But it came through on the news. I think it was Motzei Shabbat, like after Shabbos. And I told my husband, I'm like, Charlie Kirk was shot? Who is that? And he's like, really? And I was like, really? And then we didn't know if he was dead or not. And I said, I mourn the death of the United States of America. And people were like, what are you talking about? I said, this country, America was born on freedom of press, freedom of speech, and you could get up and be whatever moron you wanted, and it was your right to do so. And when the Second Amendment, which is the right to bear arms, is taken to kill the First Amendment, you know you are falling apart, okay? And my children, because we're Jewish, we're Orthodox, we're Holocaust survivor grandchildren, like we know that your rights are not to be taken for granted and that you need to work for them and honor them and instill them in the next generation. But Americans and Brits, they don't know it. They don't know it. And they don't understand that when all I see is when they're following the Free Palestine and they're chanting like morons, they're just repeating what the leader says. It's like zombies, because you're just trading your freedom for following someone. You're trading your options, your thinking, your ability to decide to follow someone else. That is the danger. Whatever that thing is, if you're following it blindly and you don't know why, that is danger. And that should alarm us, parents, children, individuals. That's the scary thing. If you don't understand what your values are, then of course you're going to be led astray.
Well, that's why the Christian community is so important, because you know your values, you know your history, you know the Bible.
And our foundations are not easily shaken.
Exactly.
And we know that in order to get to the palace, you have to go to the pit, like Joseph. The only way that he was able to ultimately save Israel from famine was to be in the pit. He had to be in the pit to get to the palace. We aren't promised a tear-free life. It's the opposite. We are promised trouble. We are promised toil. But we know that victory is ours. And as an American, I understand that what you hear from our nation is filtered as well. So instead of seeing what we're being fed, we need to look at what we know. What we know is, and this is not a political statement, this is just a fact, Donald Trump was elected because the youth of America, who didn't get a chance to participate in the 2016 election, was the boost that put him in office. Yeah. I don't worry about Tucker Carlson because we have a president that bombed Iran. I don't worry about the next generation of America because we have students on campuses that understand that freedom isn't free, and that if you don't use your freedom to defend your freedom, then you will lose your freedom.
Well, on that very optimistic note, we don't have a lot of moments of optimism sometimes on the show. Let's move on to our group therapy session called Scumbag of the Week. Okay, you ladies have done this before, and honestly, every single week, it's like you can't get any worse, and it does. And people are just ridiculous. So Lily, let's start with you, dear.
So again, as the ADHD person that I am, I have a collective of scumbags.
Collectives are good.
Collectives is first and forever, for as long as the Islamic Republic stands, all of its supporters and its entire existence. The real scumbags right now, though, are the media headliners who sat by while Charlie was bleeding, and instead of showing humanity for their fellow American, fellow human, they just spread lies and deceitful and hateful commentary against him. MSNBC representatives. I mean, it's awful. It's awful. How much do you hate America? How much do you hate America? How much do you hate freedom to try and look for a kind profiling of the killer instantly? Instantly.
A kind profile of the
instantly. This has become a habit.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. When a mass killing happens, instantly, before they look for who it is, why it is, they look for a kind profile.
Excuse.
An excuse. Yeah, a gentle profiling of this person. Like, They had mental health. They had oppression in one way or another. Someone had hurt her ego in first grade. Like, a champion of free speech died in front of the world eyes. And while he's being announced dead, murdered, you say Charlie died so casually. Charlie was a divisive character. Charlie's queen is now coming with a battalion. Just be ready. The world better be ready.
Like that.
That's all I'm gonna say.
You're so right, and it's the same agenda of either appeasement or just hating the freedoms of their own country that is creating all this and makes people, say that this was in London a far-right march and it was less than it was, and just not taking people seriously. And that's fantastic, Scumbags. Thanks, Lily. Sandra, dear.
So my scumbag, it is a collective, but only because I woke up this morning here in Israel and saw that in the United States yesterday was the Emmys, and that there was an effort at the Emmys for everybody to sign the boycott Israeli film petition, which, by the way, as Jews, you're also failing at controlling Hollywood.
Yes.
So
we really suck at controlling Hollywood, controlling the media, and the weather.
Right, which is so, again, and people aren't worried about recognizing reality. They're worried about distorted reality.
Of course.
What better way to prevent creative and horizontal interaction between Palestinians and Muslims and Christians and Jews than to remove every single opportunity for them to work together creatively, to tell stories. And preemptive censorship is always an amazing idea, and I'm sure it will go off swimmingly and without a hitch. And by the way, if you'd like to boycott Israeli film, then boycott Israel. Give up your phone, give up most of your medications. The next time that you have a disease and you need cutting edge treatment, good luck in Rwanda. Just say it with your chest and do it all the way. Those are my scumbags of the week.
Oh, it's just really horrible the way they've bought everything lock, stock, and barrel with no critical thinking. I think that's the bottom line. And the worst, of course, are the as a Jews. And on that note, Shoshana, your
Thank you for pushing that up for me. My scumbag is, I'm actually not even going to name her because I didn't know who you were before and I don't care who you are now. All I know is that you're an as a Jew and you took your platform, congratulations on your Emmy win, to as a Jew, your goodness in the wider world, and threw all the rest of the Jews and Israel under the bus. Watch this clip.
I feel like it is my obligation as a Jewish person to distinguish Jews from the state of Israel because our religion and our culture is such an important and long-standing, basically like institution that is really separate to this sort of ethno-nationalist state.
As a Jew, and says, as a Jew, it's the most important thing for me to speak out for Palestine and to say that Jewish people as an institution, is what she called us, is not the state of Israel. Girl, what do you know if you, as a Jew, when the hits the fan, we aren't going to close our borders. You will be allowed in as a Jew. You may have your own unindoctrination to have to go through when you finally get here, but as a Jew, you will always be welcome. As a Jew, you're my sister. As a Jew, I hope you come back to reality and understand that boycotting Israel, boycotting your people, boycotting your nation, and calling your heritage, faith, and institution, sweetheart, get out your Hollywood glasses, take them off, and understand that there's a big, wide reality here. Come on over, and I'll be happy to show you what's actually going on here.
Yeah, it's a disease.
I can't.
It's a disease of these as
It's like throwing meat to lions.
Because being Jewish is not important to them except when they want to say something horrible about Israel. No, that's the only time when they actually admit that they're Jews. To crap on Israel. It's just, those people to me are the worst. And I always say, thank the Lord for the Christians, because if we will have to rely on these crazy progressive Jews, we're in bad shape.
Yeah.
And thank the Lord, obviously, for the Iranians who see the truth.
Who understand freedom.
Who understand freedom and understand how it was taken away from them.
Yeah.
So from all of this media and Hollywood, I want to take a swift turn. And this man is a repeat scumbag. Pedro Sanchez, the president of Spain, who most of Spain actually hate. He is surrounded by corruption scandals. His wife is in corruption scandals, his brother, his cousin, his best friend. Everybody's surrounded by corruption. At the moment, he's like, you know, tiptoeing away. So what do you do when you have to distract your public from the fact that you're a crook? You decide to pick on the Jews because that's something that the Spanish have been doing for a while. But I want to say something because ordinary Spanish people reach out to me every single day and they say to me, Fleur, please don't think that Spain is with Pedro Sanchez. Wow. We hate him. He's horrible. And in fact, I've had a renewed sense of hope for Spain only because of the private messages that I get on a daily basis. But look at his latest little stunt. He came out last week after calling us genociders for a year and a half. Last week, he showed his true colors when he said that he is regretful that Spain don't have a nuclear weapon in order to attack Israel. So whilst this energúmeno is attacking us for being genociders, he's regretting the fact that he doesn't have the tool to commit genocide against Jews.
España, como saben, no tiene bombas nucleares, tampoco tiene portaaviones ni grandes reservas de petróleo. Nosotros solos no podemos detener la ofensiva israelí. Pero eso no significa que no vayamos a dejar de intentarlo. Porque hay causas por las que merece la pena luchar, aunque no esté en nuestras únicas manos ganarlas.
Pedro, your country's done this before. My country was kicked out in 1492 because of a Jewish genocide happening in the hands of the Spanish. And we were sent all over the place and we came home thanks to you kicking us out. And in fact, if you want to talk about colonizers and genociders, half of the world speaks Spanish. And that's not a coincidence because all of us, including you, Sandra, we all have been somehow colonized by the Spanish.
Soy mexicana.
There you go. So she's Mexican. We all know what happened over there. So again, Pedro Sanchez, you know, you are probably in the last breaths of your power. And so you will always have to live with the fact that A, you were on the wrong side of history, and B, you renewed the hatred of Spanish people that somehow follow you. I don't think you have too many followers left against Jewish people. Shame on you. And thank God that there's regular Spanish people who see your lies, who see your hatred, who see your corruption, and hopefully are going to kick you out of your ass very soon. Bye. Pedro Sanchez, my scumbag of the week. I'm sure there's a great word for scumbag in Spanish. I always forget it because there's not quite a word that captures scumbag. Pedro Sanchez, that's who you are. Okay, and now we always like to end the show on a positive note. And for so many scumbags, there's so many heroes. Lily, let's start with you.
So my heroes are all sadly dead because tomorrow is the anniversary of Mahsa Amini.
That's right. That's right. Mahsa Amini, the Iranian woman who was brutally tortured and killed for showing 5 strands of hair.
Yes, Mahsa simply existed. She was walking the streets of Tehran with her brother as she had visited her auntie's house for some familial celebrations. And the morality police, aka the murder police as we call them in Iran, captured her and beat her up in the van. By the time she reached the morality fashion police station, she had suffered such a heavy brain hemorrhage that she fainted and then she lost her life. They kept her alive on machines for about 3 days and told so many lies to the world as the world watched this innocent young woman kept alive only on machines. Her murder sparked a revolution in Iran in 2022, and on the same night, same day or the next days, Hadis Najafi, Mikhail Karimi, and so many others came to the streets of Iran, and they lost their lives in the same way, to the bullets or the beatings or tortures and rapes of the IRGC and the Basij. We know that amongst those who killed and tortured our children are members of the Muslim Brotherhood from the countries in the Middle East, from the proxy war states. And we know that the enemies of Iran are the enemies of Israel. So to all of my heroes who are in eternal heaven, I hope that this fight continues. Charlie's with them now. They're with my brother. And I just want to say thank you to the IDF for taking out the IRGC. So, heroes are everywhere. Let's just cheer for them all the time.
You're right, Lily, and it's so sad. And, you know, at the time, which was way before October 7th, we as women were so shocked that, in fact, Shoshana, Emily, and myself organized the first pro-Masa Amini, pro-Iranian women rally here in Jerusalem. Yeah. And then Emily organized another one in Tel Aviv. And we put murals all over the country to celebrate her. There's one right out here.
Yes.
And it's so obvious that we're fighting together the same
Indeed.
horrible enemy to humanity.
Absolutely.
And so we salute you for your bravery, for coming out, for speaking. I know you put your life at risk, and that's why you can't tell people where you live. And it's not a given that this young woman puts her life at risk every day, the way Charlie did, and probably didn't even know that his life was at risk. But these Iranian dissidents, these Iranians, are doing this every single day. Kol hakavod, as we say. Yeah. Sandra, who's your hero?
My heroes of the week are the people of Great Britain. I was just there, and I know as an American that we would call them normies, the people that just want to have a country and, you know, believe what they believe and say what they want to say without feeling threatened or weaponized, that they exist in mass. They are salmon swimming upstream in the United Kingdom. People get arrested for tweeting in the United Kingdom with the speech police. And to the millions of people that marched, I salute you. The last time that the British people should have ever surrendered was 1776.
Yeah.
Since then, I am saying America stands with you. We're cousins, we're brothers. You are fighting the same fight that all right-thinking countries and peoples are fighting globally. Yeah. And you are more popular and powerful than you think. I salute you. I thank you for standing for freedom, for free speech, and you are allowed to want to take your country in the direction that it needs to go and to stop this insanity.
Amen. Really stopping the insanity whilst making all these people persona non grata, like Tommy Robinson. Okay, he has a checkered past. He's come up and said, I was this and now I'm this. I've matured. Everybody's turning him into the big bad wolf because that's what people like to do. I agree. I think the people of Britain, you know, it's funny because I interviewed a year ago, I think I interviewed Winston Marshall, and he was fighting for the Uyghurs, and he just began to see the hypocrisy. And he said to me, and I said to him, Britain is lost. And he said to me, Fleur, mark my words, the British working class once again will save the world. Yeah. Maybe this Saturday was the beginning of the British working class coming back and saving the world the way they did in 2 world wars. Yeah. And let's not forget that. Exactly. Shoshana, who is your hero?
My hero is a very local man who is, I met him last night actually for the first time. My hero is Yahi Yehud, who's Arbel's father. Arbel Yehud was a hostage. She was released. But Yahi's also the father of Dolev, Arbel's brother, who they believed was taken hostage, but he unfortunately was killed, and they found out later. So he had 2 children who were missing, believed taken hostage, and also Arbel's partner, who's still unfortunately a hostage. He's Ariel Cunyo. He's still in Gaza. And the reason he's my hero is because I met him yesterday at a United Hatzalah event. Dolev, his son, was a volunteer for United Hatzalah. He was a medic. And he spoke so personally about what it was like, not only for his daughter, Arbel, in Gaza, horrible, But what it was like waiting for his children to come home, what it meant for him personally, what it meant for his faith. And without being, giving away too much of his own personal story, I was so inspired and moved. And it's really hard these days to be inspired and moved. But this man had 2 children really wrenched from him. And he thanked me. I just said, do you want something to eat? Can I get you something? He was like, thank you so much for worrying about me. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking, where does this strength come from? Where does this resilience come from? Where does it come from that he wrote me the most beautiful letter yesterday. Thank you for worrying about me. Thank you for sitting with me. Thank you for asking if I wanted something to eat. Thank you for letting me share my story with you. Thank you for looking at me when I was talking. I'm thinking, we have lost that, like the opposite of the Charlie Kirk assassination. We have lost seeing the other person. We've lost connecting with someone and just seeing them as a person. And I want to thank you, Yachi, from the bottom of my heart, for giving that back to me, for instilling that love for another human in me. And I hope we stay in touch. And I want to celebrate with you when all the hostages come home.
Amen.
The biggest party ever.
Amen.
My sunglasses have fallen off. I want to party with you and everyone when they come home. Bezrat Hashem, it should just be today.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, you meet some of the parents of these kids. I mean, I met them also when their kids were there.
I don't know.
I met Emily Damari's mother. She was the calmest, sweetest woman in the world.
I met
Mandy. And I was like, how are you? And she was thanking me for listening to her. I'm like, what?
Right.
Incredible people, incredible heroes. These people, in this country, people, honestly, they're strong as nails. I don't know where they get their strength from. It's incredible. So I'm going to end the hero section. We spoke about how fickle and zombie-like Hollywood has become. But I want to talk about one guy who is not influenced by the hype and by the brainwashing, and that's Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah. He's been my hero before when he came to Israel. But this time, he goes to Duke University and he gets up on stage and he basically says what we all know, but the world doesn't want to say, that the pro-Hamas movement are equivalent to the KKK.
They are. Absolutely.
Exactly. We know that. The world has been completely blindsided. They have no idea what's going on. But Jerry Seinfeld, who doesn't care about his popularity, he doesn't care about who's hiring him next. He knows who he is. He knows who the good guys are. He knows who the bad guys are. And he was very clear. He got up and said what we're all thinking, what we all should be saying every single day. The pro-Hamas Islamist movement is the KKK of today. So thank you, Jerry Seinfeld, for remaining true to intelligence, history, common facts, but also to who you are as a person and as a Jew. You're a real Jew. So thank you. Thank you for standing with Israel and not flinching to stand with Israel. Okay, ladies, and on that, happy, sad note of what's happened in the last week, your encouraging words about where the Christian communities stand unequivocally with Israel, and Lily, your vision for Iran becoming the partner of Israel in the future. We could turn the region around when we get rid of those horrible, disgusting Islamists. And hopefully that'll be the new era that we all see together. And as usual, and as every week, we pray that by next week, which is Rosh Hashanah, which is New Year, we have all our hostages home.
Amen.
God bless you all, and thanks for watching.